Hey guys, this is Tyris. Today I'm going to do a second in my series of video guides, this time around doing Axe. Sorry by the way about the delay with doing videos, because I know a lot of people have been wanting more. I just haven't had time to do them. I've been away from my computer for the last 3 months, so yeah, no internet. In this video, Axe this time around, so I'm going to look at generic Axe bar. I'll look at the key skills, so Bull, Strike, Shock, and also D-Chop. And I'll look at the elites and how they sort of affect the flavour of each bar. Also, I'll briefly mention quarter step, but I'm not going to go into much detail because I actually have another vid on my channel page, but I'll also put a link in the description for you guys. And I'll probably look at Q-chop and quarter knock as well, just briefly, to make sure I've got everything covered. Okay, so on your screen you should now be seeing a generic Axe bar. Now you will notice that the main bar doesn't have any elite skills, and there are a bunch of elites just floating above it at various places. And the idea with this is, instead of showing you a bunch of Axe bars, I'd show you just one generic Axe bar and then how each elite slots into the bar. Because each of the elites actually replaces the skill which it's directly above. So for example, Eviscerate is the elite version of Dismember, pretty much, so that replaces that skill. Primal Rage is basically an elite version of Frenzy, so it replaces that skill, and so on. Okay, so I'll now go through the bar bit by bit. Okay, slot number 1 is the first of your 2 spike damage skills. You have Dismember in this case, so it's 5 adrenaline, so cheap, and it's a deep wound. Now, if you wanted a bit more spike damage, you could bring the elite skill Eviscerate. Now, Eviscerate is similar to Dismember, it inflicts a deep wound, and on top of that, you get big plus damage. So you get big plus damage and a deep wound in one skill. The downside is it's 8 adrenaline, 3 more than Dismember, but it's huge spike damage. If you crit with Eviscerate, you will do 100 damage from the skill on its own, and then 100 more from the deep wound. So 200 damage in one skill, which is big. And then you've got the option to follow through with skill number 2, which is your second spike damage skill. In this case we have Body Blow. Body Blow is again big plus damage, so similar to Eviscerate's plus damage, and yeah, it's only 6 adrenaline, so, oh sorry, 7 adrenaline, my bad. So reasonably spammable-ish. You can replace that with Executioner Strike, which is pretty much the same skill but 8 adrenaline, if you're speccing into Air Magic or Fire Magic more or whatever for a Conjure. So if you're speccing less strength, you can use Executioners instead to get the same effect, but it's a bit less spammable because it's more adrenaline, so most people tend to use Body Blow because it's normal to spec 13 strength with Axe bars. Also in that slot you can run Whirling. Now Whirling is a little bit different. It's less plus damage, so it's not as good as a spike follow through. It's better for pressure though, because it's 4 adrenaline, and now the big upsides of Whirling is unblockable and stance removing, so really strong for arenas where all the monks are relying on their stances to stay alive. Okay, slot number 3 is big skill, and it's a staple of any Axe bar. Disrupting Chop. Now, Disrupting Chop is pretty hard to use if you don't know what you're doing. It's got no plus damage, it's got no fast activation, but it has got a 20-second disable. So if you land that on a monk's Word of Healing, they're going to be crying, because they have no Word of Healing for 20 seconds, which basically means they're going to have a really miserable time healing. Now, on slot number 3, there's no elite, but what you can do if you want more spike damage, or if you're running a big spike team, you can replace D-Chop with Agonizing Chop, which has got a bit of plus damage, a 1 second activation on it, and also it still interrupts, but it's got no disable. So a bit more spike damage, Agonizing Chop, more powerful disable, D-Chop. A lot of people tend to use D-Chop, I like D-Chop. You can run Agonizing. There's arguments for both. Okay, slot number 4, Bull Strike. Super powerful skill. Pretty much never leaves any warrior bar. it's got big plus damage if you land it correctly, and also it incapacitates him. It knocks him down for 3 seconds, so super powerful skill. You can replace that if you're in sort of a pressure build, or you want a bit more pressure. You can replace that with Coward, which has the upside. It's adrenaline based and 4 adrenaline, so cheap spammable adrenaline based instead of bulls, which is energy based. And also it's ranged and a shout, so it has no activation on it. So if you see them moving, you can just hit it and they'll fall over. So it's pretty powerful as a snare, good for training stuff. Yeah, good skill. Skill number 5 is Shock. Again, really powerful skill. The only downside is it's energy based and causes exhaustion. So warriors, as most of you know, have really tiny energy pools and not much regeneration. So as soon as you start spamming something expensive like Shock, you have no energy. So you can't use Bull Strike and you can't Frenzy. So Shock, use in moderation, but really powerful because it's unconditional knockdown for 3 seconds. With of course your Stone Fists. Also, it's really good to interrupt stuff when your D-Chop's not charged. You can use it to interrupt, to res. And also you can use it for quarter knocking after bulls, which I'll go into later. Also in that slot you can take Shove. Now Shove is very similar to Shock, only it's not got any exhaustion attached to it, so you can pretty much use it on recharge. Although the recharge is 3 seconds more, it doesn't really matter because there's no exhaustion, so you can spam it more. Also it removes stances if the target's moving, but it's a little bit difficult to work that. Next slot is Frenzy. Woo, Frenzy, great skill. Downside is a double damage, but if you're good at cancelling, you shouldn't really feel it hurts too much. And the 33% IAS is totally worth it, because it boosts your adrenaline gain and your damage so much. Also in that slot, there is Primal Rage. Primal Rage is basically the elite version of Frenzy. Now it used to be amazing when it was energy based and everyone ran it, because it made landing bull strikes super easy. And then they changed it over to being adrenaline based, and not many people use it now because it doesn't last its recharge, and it's pulling out your adrenaline pool. It's a little bit awkward to use, a little bit clunky compared to Frenzy. It's good, but I prefer Frenzy. That's just me. Slot number 7, we have Rush. 4 adrenaline, cheap, good duration. It's basically there as a cancel stance for Frenzy, and also if you need to chase stuff down to kill it. In that slot you can also take Battle Rage. Battle Rage is pretty much never seen, I just thought I'd mention it for completeness. It's basically an elite version of Rush, but gives you double adrenaline when in Battle Rage. But also it ends if you use any energy-based skills. So any no-adrenaline skills. So it has its downsides. Upside is it boosts your adrenaline gain, but if I want to boost my adrenaline gain, generally I'll be in Frenzy, because I can up my adrenaline gain and gain more damage at the same time. That's just me. Okay, so that's the bar. Also, slot number 8, res. That's kind of common sense. Okay, so here you can see some clips of me practicing my quarter knock and quarter chop on the monks in the Eye of the Nameless. For axe, the rule is 2 hits. So I hit them with bulls, and I want to land D-chop. As soon as they stand up, I'll bulls them, or auto attack twice, and as soon as I land up, D-chop. Just like that. If I want a quarter knock, I will bulls them, frenzy, hit them twice, use shock, hit them twice more, and then I'll use D-chop. Now, depending on when you use shock, and also to do with the aftercast with shock is slightly different from bulls. The timings will be slightly different, so sometimes you might have to quarter step and waste quarter of a second. So the best way to get the hang of it is to practice a lot, and the timings become fairly easy after a while. It's like hammer with quarter knocking, you just have to learn the timings, and after you can do it without really trying very hard. So you can concentrate on other things like landing your bullseyes and watching for cancel on Frenzy and all that kind of stuff. Okay, now I'm just gonna have some clips of me playing, and I'm gonna talk about various stuff I haven't really covered properly. So I'm gonna talk Bull Strike first. In some of these clips, you'll notice that what I want to say a lot of players do with their bulls is they're frenzy on a target, say a monk. The monk starts running away, so they hit rush and chase, and then try and bulls them in rush. Now that works, but it's not really that great. And if a monk stops, your queued bulls will just fail completely. You'll just hit a stationary monk that's casting, which is a bit of a waste. So what I try and do is I try and work out when they are going to kite and queue my bulls accordingly. Now this does mean I miss sometimes, but if you land it, it's basically a complete surprise. They are not ready for it at all. Also, one of the other things you can do with bulls is if a healer is kiting in arcs, so they kite in curves to stay in range of whoever they're trying to heal on their team. Instead of just chasing them, so it's like C-spacing, what you can do is you can actually click to move around the inside of their arc. So they run in an arc and you run in a straight line on the inside of that arc, and then when you catch up to them, because you will, like try queuing bulls and it will land a lot of the time because they're not expecting you necessarily to cut in on them like that. Another thing I haven't mentioned is quarter step. Now I have another video on quarter step, so I'm going to keep this super quick. Is you can abuse quarter step to get in front of monks, get in the way. It makes landing bulls easier as well because they have to run around you because you've moved to be in the way of where they want to go, so they've got to come past you. So bullsing becomes pretty easy. So there's a few other tricks for warrior. Most of them involve clever use of shock and dechop. For example, you're trying to get at a monk in arenas, but they keep using Guardian, and every time you go near them they use Guardian, and if you keep training them they Guardian themselves again before Guardian runs out, so they're basically just Guardian going on all the time. The trick is, with Guardian, is set a Guardian themselves, stay on them, count to 3 or 4, hit shock. Now, because they like to keep themselves in Guardian so much, as soon as they stand up, Guardian's going to be out and they're going to want to Guardian themselves. So what you can do is you can Q-chop Guardian if you Q D-chop for as soon as they stand up. And it will land pretty high amount of the time. One of the other tricks is if they're getting low on health, they'll be using Woe on recharge, so you can count the recharge and aim to D-chop it by just counting the recharge and queuing a D-chop, or you can aim to shock them if they're already under pressure and you put in a shock and then you queue a D-chop when they stand up. You're pretty much guaranteed to catch something because they're going to need to cast something as soon as they stand up to avoid deaths. So yeah, that is pretty much everything I can think of. Any questions, just post them in the comments and I'll get them as quick as I can. Thanks for listening.